Good morning, you guys. If you have not been following my channel, my name is Natasha, and I am a former stay-at-home mom turned English teacher turned stay-at-home mom. So I am just now entering back into the home. I guess just for a quick backstory, I stayed at home with all three of my older children until they went to public school. To brick and mortar school, and then after that I went and worked towards getting my English degree, and then I became a teacher. While I was getting my English degree, I found out that I was expecting my fourth child, so I had a really hard decision to make. And it was my senior year of my bachelor's degree, so I either stayed at home with the new baby and quit college, which was a very hard decision to make, because if that was the choice that I made, then I was so close, and I would have quit and not finished. Not really sure if I would have went back. And two, I would have put a financial burden, or what I felt like might be a financial burden, on my husband, because I would not have a degree, I would not have a job, and we would have all of these student loans. So he would have a new payment that he would have to be paying, a new debt that he would have to pay off if I quit school. The other option was to continue school, get my degree, and have somebody else watch the baby, which again was a very hard choice, because I have a hard time letting other people raise my kids. I have a hard time giving up control, and I have a hard time not being there for every milestone and everything that happens in their life, because I was with my older three. I felt like I was put between a rock and a hard place, because no matter the decision that I made, I felt as if it was going to be selfish. Somebody was going to be paying a price no matter what I chose to do. But I also believe that children are a gift from God, and God had a plan, because I was told that I would not be able to get pregnant again. And he is 6 years old now. So what happened was I was able to stay at home with him for the first 4 months of his life, and then we decided to finish out my senior year of college. And so luckily my oldest was a freshman in high school at that time, and he did virtual homeschool, and so he stayed at home and watched my son while I finished getting my degree. And I love the bond that they have. It's a wonderful bond that the two of them have. They're like best friends. They're 13 years apart, and they are like bonded. They are best friends. But there's still a lot of shame and regret for myself, because I was not present or wholly present during that time of my baby's life. And I also feel a lot of kind of regret that I put that much of a burden on my freshman son at the time. So there's a lot looking back that I really wish I would have changed, and I wouldn't have chose to go that path. But I also look back and think that God had me the entire time, and everything really kind of worked out the way that it was supposed to. So I got my degree, I started teaching, I taught for 5 years, and found out I was pregnant again. So I am 8 months pregnant with baby number 5. And luckily enough for me, the last 2 years I have taught virtually. When COVID and regulations and everything hit, per my own convictions and stuff, I did not return back to the brick and mortar school, but I was blessed enough to teach for a virtual school. And that's what I did for the last couple of years. And then when I found out I was pregnant, I decided to stay at home. So that's kind of what this video is about. Sorry for the long intro, but I felt like you kind of really needed to understand my story, to understand my reasoning behind why I'm posting this video, and where my stance is on a lot of things. So the last couple of years, while I was teaching at the virtual school, I pulled my kids from brick and mortar too. When the regulations and mandates and everything hit the school system, there was a lot I did not agree with. And I couldn't justify teaching, and I couldn't justify having my kids there and going against my own personal convictions. So I pulled. And it really has been one of the best decisions that we have made. So they have been homeschooled the last 2 years. Again, my older son, he's already graduated, but he was homeschooled for like the last, his basically his entire high school career, he was homeschooled. I have one that is a senior this year, one that is a junior, but we're going to try to fast track and get him graduated this year. My 6-year-old is going into 1st grade, and then the other one is graduated. And the baby's due right when school basically starts. So it's been quite a journey, and a blessing and many trials, a lot of struggles and trials. So I have a lot of issues with the public school system, the brick and mortar school system. It seems as if so many things in life are a money game, and I'm not okay with that, especially whenever my children are exposed to that, and their treatment, success, the way other people view them and stuff is all based on things like that. So I had an issue with every school that we were at, and there's not a single school that is so perfect that you will not have some kind of an issue. Like, as a parent, if you are really involved in your children's life, there is going to the schools, there will always be some kind of something that you don't agree with or that is problematic. And I found that at every school. But many of the reasons why I chose to homeschool my kids was because I wanted to have a say in what they were being taught. I wanted them to understand that God can be in school. And so by doing homeschool and stuff, we can do different little Bible studies and teach them things through that and everything else. I wanted to be more involved in their life. Whereas while I was working, I felt like so much of my time was taken. Whenever I was in the brick and mortar, I was there all day long. If my kid got sick, I was letting somebody down. Either I wasn't at home to be with my kid who was sick, or I wasn't at work to teach, and so I was letting my employer down, I was letting my students down. Somebody always paid a price. So I don't have to worry about that with homeschool. If they're sick, then just let them, stay at home because I'm here with them. And the indoctrination of just basically society and the things that they were teaching and the things that they were telling them, and a lot of the stuff that they were exposed to, societal norms that they were exposed to that I was not okay with. And I feel like in the last few years that has just gotten worse. And I'm so thankful that my kids are not there. I think it's very important that your kids know what's going on in the world. I think it's very important that they are not naive and that they are exposed to different things, but that they're not subjected to it. And by homeschooling, I feel like they're not subjected to it. Another reason I chose homeschooling was because my kids can move at their pace. So I have, like, my 6-year-old is very, very advanced. And if he were in a brick and mortar school, he would be bored out of his mind, because he needs to advance. He needs to fast track a little bit more because he needs a little bit more of a challenge. And the same thing, like with my senior, my son who already graduated, that was a problem for us. He would get done with all of his work because he's really smart, and then he would get bored. And so he would talk and disrupt everyone. And so homeschooling is a really great option because he can excuse me, he can, he could have, he, at the point, at that time, he could have moved at his own pace. Okay, so I had to move rooms because I couldn't breathe. The way the baby sits, I just can't breathe. So anyway, so those are some of the main reasons why I chose to homeschool. I guess I really just needed that push, and COVID really kind of was my push. And once I was in it, I was in it. But for the last 2 years, even though my kids have been homeschooled, I have been teaching virtually, and that has taken a great deal of my time. And so I feel like I have neglected the parenting side because I've spent so much time trying to be the best teacher, the best employee that I could be. And so I'm super excited that I am not going to be working anymore, and I get to just spend time with my kids, and I get to teach them. There are things that make me a little anxious. I'm afraid I'm going to get bored, which I know sounds ridiculous because I have 5 kids, but I'm just afraid I'm going to get bored, and I'm going to want to be doing something for myself. And I don't feel like, like teaching was one of the things that was for myself. Like I was able to do it, and I enjoyed it. But it's the comments, like my 16-year-old son, he tells me, he's like, I'm so glad that you're a stay-at-home mom again. And I'm like, okay, you don't really expect that from a 16-year-old. And he said, you're just not grouchy all the time. You're in a better mood all the time. And he goes, and there's always food to eat. There was always food to eat, but I cook a lot more now that I'm staying at home and I don't have a job that is taking my time. So my children are already feeling it. And that was really eye-opening for me whenever I realized that they felt the heaviness of me working. And I thought, I was doing a good thing by working because it was helping financially. And I mean, we lived off of my husband's income alone for like just a single income for all of those years until I went back to work. And luckily for us, we don't have any debt. Everything's paid off, and we are in a financial position to where I can take off. I don't have to work. My husband makes enough money to take care of us. I don't have to help him. He tells me all the time one of his biggest helps is just me not being stressed out and me being in a good mood when he comes home. Like, those are the things that help him. And I'm like, I can do that. Like, I can definitely do that. I'm going to have some stressful days because being a stay-at-home mom is hard. I've done it before. I've done both the stay-at-home mom job. I've done the working mom. I've done the both of them at the same time. And they're all equally difficult and challenging in all different types of aspects. So I hate when we always compare. Moms constantly compare who has it the hardest. And unless you've walked in all of those, how do you know? How do you know if it was harder to do this? They were all challenging. I felt like they were all challenging. I have my own challenges now being a stay-at-home mom than I did whenever I was a working mom. And I had challenges when I was a working mom that I didn't have whenever I was a stay-at-home mom. So, it kind of is what it is. But one of the things I wanted to mention was how everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion, and we live in a society today that being a stay-at-home mom is not the popular norm. Being a stay-at-home mom is for weak women, because strong women go out and work. And I have such a problem with the way society views stay-at-home moms. I wanted to give my kids, everything that they needed and wanted, and they have everything that they need and pretty much a great deal of the things that they want. In the end, what does that teach your children? What does it teach your kids whenever you give them everything that they want? They need to learn work ethic. They need to learn lack. They need to learn struggle. They need to go through some hardships. They need to grow up. And those are some of the ways that they do that. And so by constantly showering them with everything they want and need, I feel like doesn't do any good. So by me having extra income, I kind of fell into that trap of doing that. If they wanted, I would go get. We got used to eating out a lot. Now I'm cooking at home more often, which is healthier. And I don't want them to have an attitude like they're entitled or that they have something owed to them, because that's not right. And I feel like whenever I was having extra spending money to do that because I was working as well, that that I was creating that in them, and that's just not a good personality trait, character trait. It's not a good mentality to have, and it doesn't raise up men and women. So but I have such an issue with people thinking that it is in their right to voice an opinion on whether or not somebody should go back to work or not. Like I said, our bills are taken care of. We have no debt. My kids are taken care of. There's always food, plenty of food, probably too much food that I cook and make up. It's one of those that I look back on it and I honestly wish I would have stayed at home. I really do. I wish I wouldn't have worked yet, because I feel like I missed out on a lot. And whenever my kids are adults and they're older, they're not going to look back and be like, yeah, that one summer mom bought me this pair of shoes or whatever. They're going to look back and remember whenever mom was at home and the memories that they had. So that was part of the reason why I chose to do what I did and stay at home. And it's just amazing how many people feel like they can say stuff like, and just silly things like, oh, well, you're not going to be able to do this, and oh, you're just different things. I mean, people say things and they say them and they always say it in like a joking manner because they don't want to hurt your feelings, but you know what they're saying. And I'm like, nobody knows what works best for you and your family except for you and your family. So sometimes our opinions really need to kind of stay one-sided and to ourselves, and they need to just stay like opinions. We had some bullying issues at some of our brick and mortar schools. We had a major credit issue, like with high school credits issue. My son had to retake a few classes because they missed that he had already taken the classes, and so he had to retake classes his senior year that he had already taken because they didn't give him credit for it. Just being exposed to everything now. Like we have these, I can't even get started, but just the things that are going on in the school system right now. If you want to know, just go watch the news, read a newspaper, and you'll see are things I do not want my children exposed to. I don't need my 5-year-old having a sex education class. That's ridiculous. I don't need my daughter sharing a bathroom with an 18-year-old boy where there's no cameras, which shouldn't be in a bathroom, but there's no cameras, there's no guards, there's nobody there. Anything could happen. Whenever we put too much of our money, funding, and emphasis on athletics instead of academics, it's a lot. It's a lot. And there are also really great things about brick and mortar and public schools. I can say really, really great things about them. Sometimes that's the only family that a child has. Sometimes that's the only meal that a child has. Sometimes that is the social exposure that somebody who's very backwards and shy needs to kind of, feel like themselves or feel like they're accepted or have somebody to talk to. There are so many really good things about school. Really, there are. But whenever I weigh the pros and cons, for me and mine, it's better for us to homeschool. So that's what we're doing. And I am 100% fully prepared for myself, my children, to get the whole, oh, you're homeschooled. It's such a stigma, and it's really ridiculous and silly. But I'm ready to hear it because I have prepared myself for it, because people, like I said, like to share their opinions, and so that's going to be the thing. Recently, I just finished this book. I highly, 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 highly recommend this book. It's Weapons of Mass Instruction by John Gatto. This book was written decades ago. I think maybe I would need to, I think it was written in the 80s. But in this book, it's not one of those leisure reads where you can just go in and read it and be like, oh, I love reading this. It's such a feel-good book. No, but it is, it's a nonfiction book, and it's got a lot of really great information in it about the downfall of the school system. And this was written, like I said, like in the 80s. So he foresaw kind of what was going to happen later on in life, because he was seeing what was happening then and there. So I'd ask you guys, if you are so willing to, as school is coming up and we are approaching a new school year, to pay very close attention to what is going on in the school systems, because it's going to be very telling of what will happen in the near future and in the years to come. My heart is just that I want to be for my kids. I don't need somebody else to be for my kids. I understand there are many families who don't have this opportunity. I understand there are many families who can't afford to do this. I understand there are many families who literally don't have the time because they have to go to work, but they have to work 1 or 2 jobs, and then they need somebody to keep an eye on their kid, and school becomes that for them. And I also understand that there are some families who this would stress them out, and they're like, no, I cannot teach them. I just can't do it. And so they feel the need to put them in the school system. I applaud those people. Do what you need to do. Like I said, you know what is best for you and your family. But for me, this is what is best. So this is going to be the first year that I am actually 100% not working and strictly homeschooling. So like I said, I have a senior, I have a junior, and I have a first grader, and I'm going to have a newborn. My goal is to graduate both of my junior and my senior this school year, and get them graduated, and then only have the 6-year-old. But I'm really looking forward to it. I have some fears, I have some anxieties, I have some things that I'm worried about and that I'm cautious of and that I'm studying up on and stuff. But in the end, I'm just so excited to have my kids at home with me. I'm excited to be at home with them. I'm excited to be able to pray with them before we do schoolwork. Whenever they're sick, I'm here with them. I can make them some soup and they don't have to do school that day. There's just so many beautiful positives to this that I'm so excited. So again, the reason I put this video together was because I've had a lot of people ask me, why homeschool? And those are my reasons. I could do a whole video on pros and cons of homeschool and pros and cons of brick and mortar, but that would probably be a really boring video. So I just kind of wanted to share my heart, tell you where I'm at, and just urge you to get involved. If your kids are in a brick and mortar school, get involved. As a teacher, there were so many parents that I knew, that were not involved in their children's education, their life, or anything like that. And it was really hard as a teacher to sit and witness that. So if your kid is in a brick and mortar school, please do everything you can to get involved in their education, to know what's going on in their school. Ask to be CC'd on emails, ask to get a newsletter, ask to all of those things the teacher should already be doing anyway. That way, but read them, check their backpack every night. Pay attention to what is going on in their lives, because our public school system right now is teeter-tottering. Is it going to go this way or is it going to go that way? And you really kind of need to be in the know. Even though I am homeschooling my kids, I am still paying very close attention to the State Department of Education and what is going on in the school system. But if you do nothing else, pray. Pray for your kids. Pray for the teachers. Pray for the school system. And just pray, because we're living in a world and in a very accepting society of a lot of evil and darkness and things that our children should not be exposed to, should not be subjected to. And it is a very, very scary world. Very scary world. And if you are not teaching your children, the only place they're learning it is from school, from their peers and their teachers, and that may go against what you want them to learn. So just get involved.